We're diving straight into a topic that I think demands we look far beyond the superficial: cross-dressing.
That's right, because for so many people, the first thought is always the external, isn't it? It's about the clothes, the makeup, maybe the performance of it all.
But our sources today just completely pivot away from that. We're not here to talk about fashion or technique. Our deep dive is into the quiet, the internal challenge. We're exploring the true, heavy mental and emotional cost of secrecy.
Right, so our mission for you, the listener, is really to understand why the very act of hiding something this personal creates these enormous burdens. We're talking serious mental health challenges, intense relationship strain.
And self-esteem erosion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these burdens often far outweigh the emotional difficulty of the actual activity itself.
And what the sources make clear right from the start is this. For a lot of individuals, the real struggle isn't happening when they're dressed. It's in all the hours and days in between, maintaining that cover story. The core finding is that while the cross-dressing itself can be liberating or even joyful, the real challenge lives somewhere much quieter and heavier. It's the ongoing, silent toll of the secret.
It's the cover-up, not the act, that carries the most significant weight.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the operational reality of it all. The sources describe this hidden existence as demanding total compartmentalization.
And this isn't just like keeping a hobby separate. This is a fundamental splitting of the self, a profound, nonstop act of mental architecture.
So you have two selves.
Two distinct selves that must never, ever intersect. There's the public self, the one at work, with family, the person the world knows and is comfortable with.
That self has to be consistent, visible.
And completely non-threatening. And then you have the private self, the one that only exists, behind locked doors, often late at night when everyone's asleep.
Followed by that really tense, comprehensive cleanup, right? Carefully erasing all the physical evidence, the browser history, clearing that whole slate before the morning comes.
And that dual existence is just absolutely exhausting, and it requires constant, heavy mental effort, a kind of extreme mental load. Our sources use the term vigilance over and over again.
When you say vigilance, are we talking about like the normal anxiety someone feels when they forget a deadline, or is this something much bigger?
Oh, it's far more consuming. Imagine being a security guard who's always on watch, but the threat isn't coming from the outside.
It's internal.
It's internal, and the stakes are your entire life. Your marriage, your job, your relationships. Vigilance here means constantly tracking what you've said, what you haven't, where you hid the clothes, which receipt is in your pocket.
What excuse you used for being out late last Tuesday.
Exactly. You cannot afford to relax that guard, not for a second.
That just sounds like a sustained state of low-level panic. It's not just the action itself, it's the constant memory management and the risk assessment that follows every single conversation.
Precisely. And that's why the sources detail how this stress shows up in ways that can feel totally unrelated to the secret.
Right.
The stress doesn't announce itself as fear of discovery. It shows up physically, emotionally. It's generalized anxiety, chronic irritability, trouble sleeping, that persistent feeling of just being perpetually on edge.
So the person is constantly dealing with the symptoms of their secrecy, but they can't address the root cause without blowing up the whole thing.
That's it. And this practice of hiding, it also erodes self-acceptance. It forces this crushing internal conflict. The person has to deny a part of themselves that might give them real comfort or joy.
And categorize it as something shameful or dangerous.
Yes. And the really interesting thing here is that the conflict isn't always guilt over the cross-dressing itself. For many, the act is a positive thing. The guilt is over withholding something so significant from the people they love most.
That act of withholding just quietly chips away at your own sense of self-worth, I'd imagine.
It does. The thought process becomes, if the people who love me can't accept this part of me, how can I accept it myself? They internalize that secrecy and that question day after day.
Yeah.
It's just deeply corrosive.
Let's pivot a little now and connect that internal conflict to a more foundational psychological truth. I mean, humans are social beings, right?
Fundamentally.
We connect by sharing things, our stories, our passions, our vulnerabilities. That's how we feel seen by other people.
That need is universal. And cross-dressing, whether it's for self-expression or comfort or gender exploration, it becomes this really significant, emotionally loaded part of a person's inner life.
So to keep that enormous piece of yourself completely locked away, it must feel profoundly unnatural, even painful.
It is. We talk about a new hobby we picked up or a book we're reading. The natural human instinct is to share what excites us. But here, that instinct just runs into a massive brick wall.
And when you can't share a part of your life that holds that much personal significance, you enter what the sources call the isolation paradox.
Right. You could be at the dinner table with your family laughing. You could be lying in bed next to your partner, physically surrounded by love.
But you feel profoundly alone.
Deeply alone. Because this major part of your inner world is just completely unspoken. It's a really jarring cognitive dissonance.
And that kind of internal isolation must be at its most painful when the secrecy is inside an intimate relationship. That's the one person you're supposed to be most honest with.
Absolutely. When cross-dressing is hidden from a spouse, it creates what the sources describe as an invisible wall between them. And that wall, it just devastates intimacy because one partner is constantly on guard.
So if we were to look for the practical symptoms of this wall, what would we see in the relationship?
Well, you'd see things like guarded conversations, avoiding any topic that might get too close to the secret, defensiveness about privacy, anxiety about shared spaces like a closet or a garage.
Maybe being overly careful about planning time away from home.
Yes, or the crossdresser might just become withdrawn, irritable, pushing their partner away subconsciously because distance feels safer than the risk of discovery.
And the really tragic part is that the partner feels that distance, they feel that emotional chill, but they can't name the cause.
They might blame themselves or the relationship, never realizing the core issue is this huge secret hanging in the air.
It creates this sense of unease that just festers, I'm sure. The partner feels shut out, even if they don't know what they're being shut out of.
Exactly.
So what does all this sustained emotional tension lead to? When something that meaningful goes unacknowledged at home, I have to assume the need for validation from somewhere else just grows stronger.
It's a completely natural human response. It's self-preservation. Since that primary relationship has this huge validation gap, the urge to reach out somewhere else can become overwhelming.
And this is where external communities, usually online, become so important.
Essential. We're talking online forums, chat groups, private communities, spaces where people can finally share this experience.
And they offer immediate relief, right? Reassurance that you are not alone.
The sources are so clear on this. For many, these digital spaces are incredibly supportive. They offer a sense of normalcy they can't find anywhere else. They can be, and I'm not exaggerating, literally life-saving. A safe, pressure release valve.
Here's where we hit a really painful complication, and I think we need to spend a little time on this nuance. What happens when that solution-seeking connection elsewhere unintentionally blows up the primary relationship?
This is where it gets fascinating and tragic. Because the search for emotional survival for validation can be so easily misinterpreted as betrayal.
How so?
Well, when all that emotional energy starts flowing outward to these supportive online friends to fill the void left by secrecy at home, it just creates new layers of tension and risk.
Because if a partner discovers not only the cross-dressing, but then also finds secret, deep online chats, even if they were completely platonic, the sense of betrayal they feel is just amplified.
Profoundly amplified. This is the crux of the tragedy. For the partner, the discovery isn't just about the clothes anymore. It becomes about the entire hidden world they were excluded from.
They feel lied to, deceived.
And that their partner developed this whole, vibrant emotional life that was kept invisible from them. The focus shifts entirely from the identity issue to the breach of trust.
And for the cross-dresser, this must feel unbelievably unfair. They know the secrecy was born from fear of rejection, not a desire to deceive. They thought they were protecting the relationship.
It's a devastating double bind. The very fear that led to the hiding in the first place ends up causing the worst possible emotional damage. The partner is left asking, why did you trust strangers online more than you trusted me?
And that's a crushing question because the honest answer is just too hard to say in that moment of crisis.
The answer, I was afraid you'd reject me, while they offered guaranteed acceptance, is almost impossible to articulate.
Which brings us to the moment of discovery itself. Whether it's an accident, a misplaced item, a browser history slip-up, or a deliberate confession. It's almost always shocking for both people.
And this really gets to the core question of this whole deep dive. Why? Why maintain the silence for so long, despite the agonizing cost?
And the sources give a really critical insight here. Most cross-dressers hide not because they're deceptive people.
No, not at all. They hide because they are trying to protect themselves, their relationships, or both. The driving force is this profound internalized fear.
Fear of rejection, fear of being reduced to a stereotype, fear of ridicule.
All of it. Silence feels like the safest option for stability, even when they know deep down it's killing them emotionally.
It's like a heavy suit of armor. But over time, that inability to be truly seen for who you are, it wears you down from the inside out.
Absolutely. You end up feeling fundamentally disconnected from your own life, always playing a role. Your joy feels muted because you can't share it authentically.
And the sources warn that the sustained internal pressure leads to this growing, generalized sense of sadness or resentment.
But it's not directed at the partner. It's directed at the situation itself, at the fact that this personal source of comfort has to remain hidden, and that resentment can erupt in unexpected ways.
Like total emotional withdrawal.
Or sudden, unplanned confessions driven by desperation. Impulsive decisions that don't reflect how much the person actually cares about their relationships. The cost of being unseen is just too high.
So for the listener who might identify with this struggle, or for a partner trying to understand this, what's the path forward according to the literature?
The consensus really stresses the immediate need for self-compassion. Just acknowledging the extraordinary mental load that secrecy requires. That's not weakness.
You have to recognize the effort it takes to hide before you can decide what to do next.
Exactly. And the sources offer positive strategy. Talking with a knowledgeable, identity-affirming therapist is huge. Also, personal things like focused journaling to process that internal conflict, and using those carefully moderated online communities where confidentiality is respected.
But we should also be clear, the sources don't say there's one right answer about disclosure.
No, there is no universal right answer. That's the ultimate takeaway. What matters is recognizing that both secrecy and disclosure have profound consequences. Understanding those consequences allows for a conscious, intentional decision rather than just reacting out of fear or loneliness.
The struggle with secrecy really just highlights how deeply all humans need connection, acceptance, and be seen. If you're carrying this weight, the material shows you are absolutely not alone in that burden.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what we've really explored here is that universal human tension between the need for authenticity, to be who you are, and the desire for stability, to keep your world as it is, and for you, the listener, to mull over. If silence feels like the safest short-term option, how can you find healthy, honest ways to support those crucial emotional needs for validation and connection without necessarily risking everything? That balance, that's the silent work so many of us face.